Hi, I'm Dave Fliesen, and I'm going to give you a walkthrough of my capstone project for Purdue University's online program with the Applied Generative AI Specialization. This is what is called InsightForge BI for business intelligence. And if you're familiar with BI from other things, the traditional form, it usually takes people that are very technical to understand it. They need to know how to use SQL programming, and it would produce basically static reports and lock non-technical people out entirely. So people that, like your business managers and others, they wouldn't necessarily be able to get in there and ask the kinds of questions and get to what the meaning of the data is as easily. So with this, I'm flipping it with InsightForge so that you ask questions in plain English and an AI analyst named Sage answers directly from your actual sales data. And that's via a chatbot. And then I decided to put something a little extra in there too. I went and made a conversational avatar modeled after myself. It's called David, and David will basically also work with your sales data, although it's a different version of it because I had to output it to make it within the 80,000 character limit that they have for the avatar. But he's very intelligent and he's also a hybrid. So David can not only answer questions about your sales data, but he can also access other things via the internet. And then the third way that I give you is I give you data visualizations. So I give you a total of 7 different visualizations so that you can see and interact with your data in new ways. And this all started with a CSV spreadsheet with your sales data, and this is what we were able to pull together from it to get a better idea of the meaning behind the data. The whole system runs inside a single Google Colab notebook. No server to manage, no local installation required. And also, every design decision is grounded in published academic research. And I'll mention that a little bit as we're going through it as well. So, without any further ado, let me show you what it looks like. So, this is the Google Colab Jupyter notebook that I put together. And basically, I have this running on my Google Drive, and I've launched it. I'm going to show you what it looks like here. This is InsightForge BI, or Business Intelligence. So you have on the top here, you have 4 of these things that are known as KPIs, these top cards. And what KPIs are key performance indicators, things that are really good to take a look at. Things like average daily sales, the total revenue, how many products you're selling, and what the average satisfaction is. You can see right here with the satisfaction, you're at a 3.03 out of 5. So that's kind of on the low side. If you can do things to improve this, it'll probably improve your sales a good bit. All right, so then we have 3 tabs here. Chat with Sage. It's a chat bot. Basically, it ties into the same data that drives this whole site. Then there's analytics, excuse me, and there's a total of 7 of these different charts that you can interact with, and we'll look at that in a second. And then avatar mode. So on this one here, I have an avatar David that I modeled after myself, and I used a Microsoft Voice with it. Took quite a bit to figure out a way that worked.
Hi, I am David. How can I help you?
Can you tell me if you learned anything interesting from our sales data?
Certainly. Widget A in the West region stands out with the highest average daily sales at $607, while Widget D in the East has the lowest at $522. Sales peak in Q2 and Q4, likely due to seasonal demand. Customer satisfaction is highest in the East, and the average customer age is around 43.3 years. Would you like insights on a specific product, region, or trend?
Well, it looks like widget D is doing the worst of the 4. Is there anything I can do to improve its performance?
Improving Widget D's performance could involve targeted marketing in underperforming regions like the East and West, where sales and satisfaction are lowest. Analyzing customer feedback for pain points, adjusting pricing, or bundling Widget D with better selling products may help. You might also focus on age groups or regions where its sales are stronger, such as the North, to build momentum. Would you like strategies tailored to a specific region or customer segment?
Well, I was also curious with widget A. It has the most sales, but I also noticed it has the lowest customer satisfaction. Is that going to possibly cause us to lose sales on it over time and make it not so strong because we won't have repeat customers or referrals?
That's a valid concern. High sales with low satisfaction, as seen with Widget, especially in the West and East, may risk future declines if repeat business or referrals drop. Monitoring satisfaction trends, gathering customer feedback, and addressing common issues proactively can help sustain sales. Enhancing post-purchase support or product quality could also improve loyalty. Would you like help designing a customer feedback initiative or a satisfaction improvement plan?
Thanks. So that's the avatar mode. For the analytics, you can see here there's the daily average sales, and you can zoom in on this and see it at any level you want. And then over here we have the average daily sales by product, and you can see what their sales are like. The highest one, it was, like I said, was widget A. Lowest one was widget D, but can't always judge everything directly off sales figures either. Average daily sales by region. And then over here we have what's called a heat map. So this shows the average customer satisfaction. You can see the ones that are darkest are the ones that have the highest scores, and the ones that are towards white are the ones with the lowest scores. So as you can see here, we have some real problems with the West region. If we can address the West and a little bit of the South, we might actually find out that we're able to improve things. Is it a matter of tech support in those regions when people call in, or is it a matter of delivery? Or is it that the people in those regions don't really like to buy that specific product? Over here, we have the average sales by quarter. And then we have the average sales by customer gender. As you can see here, the gender is almost the same, barely a change between male and female, just a little bit more on the female side for purchasing. And then the final one here is age bracket analysis. So I went and I looked at the age brackets and I broke them down to be able to understand it, but also understand when we look at the data that it's not necessarily always purchased by the person that's going to use it. So you might have somebody in their 50s and 60s that's actually purchasing something for a teenager. Let's go over here to chat with Sage. So this is a standard chat bot. This is working off your data from that CSV that we broke down into knowledge chunks and then we vectorized it. And so let's see what we got from it. Let's see here. So these were done by Plotly. These are the 7 charts were, by the way. Where's my chatbot information? Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to ask it some simple questions here. Let me get my keyboard out. Kind of in a weird position to go ahead and do all this recording. So I'm going to ask it which product has the highest average sales in the South region. So which product has the highest average sales in the South region? Oh. And if I can only type average. Okay, not too bad. Let's see. Now, when it gives me responses, it gives them to me in a very specific way. It's a structured response format, as you see here. It's direct answers with numbers, key statistics, then a business recommendation, always in that order, and always under 150 words. So as you see here, the retrieve context does not specify individual product sales in the South region, only the overall average sales for the region. And then it breaks it down for each area. And the business recommendation is to identify the product with the highest average sales. Further breakdown of product specific sales data in the South region is needed. And then then we're going to ask it a second question to see how well it remembers what we just talked about. What does the quarterly trend tell us? Does the quarterly trend tell us about seasonal demand? And then it tells us what the dollar figures were. I'm getting these things. I don't understand this where it's saying to assess seasonal demand, it is essential to obtain detailed quarterly sales data for each product and region. I'm wondering if it's not accessing all of the data this time. When I did this before, it was working fine. Quarterly sales. Maybe it gave me that and I'm just not remembering. But, okay, so which product, oh, sorry, typing on the wrong keyboard. Which product sold the most? Make sure it is actually reading the data. Widget A sold the most, okay. But that gives you an overview on the different areas. And also, as we work on it, we can update the data as we get newer information. Now, I can also reset the conversation over here on the side. And let me go ahead and switch over then to a walkthrough about the architecture to show that to you for InsightForge. So with InsightForge, we have three parts to it. As you saw, the conversational RAG, that was the, and then the live analytics. So this is the chatbot. This is the charts from the charts that we did. And then DID was the avatar. All right. So there were three layers on this, from raw data to conversational insight. There was a data layer, an intelligence layer, and a delivery layer. Our data layer was the CSV file that we started with, the spreadsheet basically, with our sales data. It had 2,500 rows and 7 columns. We turned it into 160 or so reg chunks. And then we used FAISS for the CPU index to turn it into 3D vector. Then our intelligence layer had LangChain for the RAG. We had OpenAI's GPT-4o Mini. It has a 5-turn memory, and we use the open source Hugging Face with Mini LM. For our delivery layer, we had Fast API backend, chat and analytics, as you saw demonstrated, along with the DID avatar, and ngrok for the tunnel that was used to serve it up. We tried many different ways to make the conversational avatar. Now, that probably took me longest of anything, is to get the avatar working, because I had to keep trying different approaches. At first, I was trying with 11 labs, and then I tried with HeyGen using 11 labs. But most of this stuff, what I was finding is it wanted to pre-can things. So I'd have to have canned responses, and I preferred to have it so you could ask it any question instead of just a canned response, because that makes it a lot better for scalability, especially. Then iframes became a big issue. When I started to work with DID, I kept running into issues with iframes that they didn't want to play well. And it turns out iframes don't work with DID avatars. So I ended up going back to the company and asking for advice. And they told me tie it into their API and use their default demo as a starting point on that. And that helped a lot. And then in this, instead of it going into iframes for the website, I'm actually using native HTML. And this is with full WebRTC. Any question you want to ask, it can answer, and it does the lip sync as you saw. Now, the version I used there was more of a simple one where the head just moves, but you can get it so that the body moves, or you can have it look a little bit more like video. It just all depends on how much money you want to put into it. Wide conversational wins, any questions, anytime, not limited to pre-scripted responses. It scales well with your data, knowledge base updates, David updates. So I have the text file that I have here that I use for it. And when I upload that, it's basically the same. I'll show you what it looks like. It's basically the same data that is used for the entire InsightForge, but I basically have asked it to spit it out for me from the Jupyter Notebook file, and it basically puts it into something that's within the character limit for the avatar, which is 80,000 characters. So as you can see here, it gave a breakdown of all this data in ways that would allow it to get better meaning from it. Um, I cloned my identity in this case. David uses my face or anybody's face I wanted to. If you wanted a specific avatar and a matching voice. In this case, I use Microsoft's voice due to the low latency of it. Then DID API plus plain HTML turned out to be our best option using the native WebRTC and no frame restrictions. All right, it's one notebook with everything integrated. I'm going to go over this process with you with all 11 of these steps as we go into the code base. But this shows you what it looked like when I laid it out. And that's what it is. It has rate grounds every answer in real data, no hallucinations. 7 live charts make patterns visible without any SQL being used. Conversational avatar scales to any question the data can answer. So now let's take a look at the code base on it. All right, so this is, I got to reconnect. Updating preview. So this is InsightForge, and I basically laid things out because I know documentation is a real important aspect. Let me close out this table of contents. So I wanted to make sure it was well documented. Up front here is the information about what it's about, the project overview for it, the capstone objectives that I wanted to make sure I included, what my tech stack is for this, which types of AI and other technologies I'm using to create this, and then the execution instructions. So I laid this out from cell 0 to cell 11 with the Jupyter Notebook to make it easy to run. So we start off with, and then these are the Colab secrets. So one of the nice things with Google Colab is you have a thing called secrets. So your API keys that you don't want to put into documents and anybody could read them, you have them hidden off to the side here. Now, there are ways to do that where you create a certain type of file off to the side with your Python as well, but it works really nicely with Google Colabs. Although I did find sometimes it was a little hard for it to remember the secrets. I'd get later in the cells, and I might have to tell it to go back and look at it again. But and I also, if you notice, some of these are blue. I've set these for notebook access so that it doesn't have to ask me for permission to run it. All right, so now let's go back over here to the index, and we'll start with cell 0. So this is mounting Google Drive. You don't have to do it, but the nice thing is it saves the FAISS index between sessions, so that you can reduce time in running things. So I'm just going to go ahead and, well, I've already run all these things. I don't have to run them again. Then we go to cell 1. This is install dependencies. Here I install things like LangChain, Fast API, UVcorn, Plotly, which is the one that actually did up those charts you saw, and ngrok, which gave us the tunnel that we delivered it to on the web. Okay, so then we can go down here and see these are basically what it all installed. And I did run into some problems with Numpy and Pandas. They didn't like to play well together if the versions weren't exactly matched up. So I had to do some creative things to get that so that it would lock it down in place and not touch things. So then I configure my APIs in cell 2. So as you can see here, these are the ones that we're running. So it was the OpenAI, a couple of the DID, which is for the avatar, and then the ngrok, which is basically just for tokens. It's a tokenized system that I pay tokens to be able to serve things up. So you can see that's there. And then let me go back up. I went past cell 3 layout. Yeah, let me go to cell 3. This is loading the data set. So this is the file that we were originally provided to start this whole thing off. Sales data.csv. It's from the same Google Drive folder as my notebook here is. So it automatically pulls from that and basically loads it up, and we'll see it here, a visualization of it. This is the 2,500 rows, and it was in 7 columns in the CSV format. All right, then we come down here to cell 4. This is where we build the knowledge chunks. So now that we pulled that data in, now that we've loaded that data set, now we're going to chunk it. So this is going to create, it's going to convert that sales statistics into 160 natural language text chunks in order to use for reg retrieval. And as you can see here, it built 161 knowledge chunks. All right, we'll go to cell 5. This builds the FAISS vector index. So what this is kind of cool, it takes it and it basically takes all those knowledge chunks and it breaks things up so that they're in 3D vector space. So it has a positional location in 3D. And then it embeds the chunks using the open source tool Hugging Face, which is pretty cool. It's always great to see a good open source tool. Um, all mini LM L6 V2 and saves the face index to disk. And here you can see these are the files that when it was rendering it, it had the modules for the JSON, a couple of the JSON files. Yeah, a bunch of JSONs. It's loading it up. Then we built the reg chain. This wires the face retriever to the GPT-4o Mini using LangChain for the conversational retrieval chain. And then we go to, I went too far. We build the reg chain. Yeah, I just said that, right? Okay. Cell 7, we build and upload the sales knowledge to David. So this was something I created to basically be able to upload the data as a text file. So this text file I just showed you a little while ago, go back to it just for, where it took the sales data from the spreadsheet and it put it into a meaningful representation so that my avatar for David could understand it. So the way I got that is I told it I need something that's 80,000 characters or less, and that uses that same data. Since I couldn't tie directly into it, it was a little too encumbersome. I'm just basically, when I'm running this, I can run it when I need to. I don't have to run the cell every time, but it will download it for me, and I'll show you at the bottom here, the bottom of cell 7. Okay, so it basically creates a text file, and I can just take that right off my Google Drive right there. All right, and then cell 8, now we're to, this writes the FAST API backend. So this basically is putting a FAST API server with reg endpoints, analytics, and DID proxy routes that keep your API key server side. So I got that running. I go to cell 9. I write the HTML for the front end. This writes the InsightForge.html, the single page UI with chat, analytics, and avatar tabs, the DID WebRTC code, and that was the one for the avatar for David. It runs natively in the browser and does not require iframes. Thank God. I do not like iframes. Okay. And then we get to cell 10. This launches InsightForge. I did have a thing where it would automatically launch and open up a new page as a pop-up, but sometimes I ran into issues with that where I'd open up the notebook and it would try to activate that from a previous session. So I just killed that and said, I'll just go ahead and manually activate it each time. But this copies the files from the drive, generates the fresh DID client key, scoped to the session's ngrok URL. It starts Fast API on port 8501 and opens up the tunnel. So this is basically working as your server more or less for the session. But you have to keep this cell running. If I were to close this notebook, it would no longer be running and your website won't work. Okay, so stopping kills the server. Now, the one thing and then at the very bottom of this, they'll give you a link to go to the ngrok portal that was just put together. And then cell 11, I just added in here because it's ngrok's one of those things where you really got to turn it off. If you're not using the lights, flip the switch. So it's always best to go ahead and close down your ngrok session when you're completely done, and that way you're not continuing to use your tokens, and you're not going to cause problems when you try to run it next time. Now, one other thing I have used with this is I sometimes will put that before the start. I'd automatically put a stop just to make sure that all the sessions are out. But if you're not careful with it, you can have multiple sessions going, and eventually you can't figure out why you can't run it. You go back to the site for ngrok and find that there's all these sessions still open. So you're always best to remember to close it out, and that's just a matter of pressing this button and closing. So that is my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Let me just ask David one last thing here. Hey, David, I got the people from InsightForge here on the line, and I just wanted to ask you if you had any closing thoughts on what you learned from their data.
Absolutely. The data shows strong sales overall, with Widget A leading but facing satisfaction challenges, particularly in the West and East. Widget D underperforms and could benefit from targeted strategies. Seasonal trends highlight Q2 and Q4 as key periods. Focusing on customer experience and addressing product-specific concerns can unlock even more growth. Is there a particular area you'd like to prioritize for your next steps?
Hey, thanks for the help, David. And that's it. That's my project. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to do. I learned a lot about AI in this course, and I especially learned just from doing this project, trying to, you know, the technology is changing all the time. So it's like what you use from one day to the next might change, but to understand what the workflow is and how you can basically overcome the challenges, to get things like my avatar working, that was a lot of work. And even for this demo, I got to the point where it was working one day and I flipped the switch to go the next day and it didn't want to work, but those are the challenges when you're working with code. But AI makes it a lot easier and also makes it a lot easier for business intelligence. I mean, understanding things. One thing I did run into additionally that I thought was really cool is Google has this other thing that's called Notebook LM. And with Notebook LM, I was able to make several things that could also be additional resource materials that you could use in your company, that you could use for your employees or for your customers, things that you could post online to show them, what you're doing and how you're thinking about things. And they don't necessarily need to know that it was all generated by AI. And again, you're putting into the prompts and steering it. So it's not really all by AI. It's just the AI is doing some of the heavy lifting for you and helping you to see things in a different way. Because a lot of times it's not a matter so much of who's doing the work, but a matter of being able to look at it in a way that brings the right meaning, so that you get the understanding from the data instead of just looking at a bunch of numbers. So that's my project, and I hope you enjoyed. Take care. Thanks for watching.